Formulas.
Objectives. We have to learn how to solve a formula for a specified variable, and then how to use formulas from businesses, from science, and from geometry.
Solving a formula for a variable. Logical path. We learn how to solve an equations, and usually solution would be a number. And now we are going to talk how to solve a formula, and be prepared that solution would be just an expression. So next we will move to formulas for perimeter, and formulas for area, and formulas for volume. This is what we are going to practice on the next slides. Request solve the equation or solve the formula for a variable are very similar because formula is practically an equation. And look into example number 1. Here is an equation x and -1 equals 3, and we have to solve for x. X is 4. X is just a number. On your right, you can see formula, practically an equation in two variables. X and -1y equals 3, and we have request solve for x or solve for +1x. That means that we have to rewrite this formula, and x supposed to be by itself on the one side. So +1x equal, this is what we are looking for. We will take similar actions to isolate x. We will just move -1y from the left to the right, and we will have final expression x equals y and +3. When we work on equation, we got x equal a number. When we are working on formula, x equals an expression. That's it.
The same problem number 1. And we will use more formal approach. +1x and -1y equals 3. This is just an equation, but if we use an equation more often, we can call formula. And this time we have request solve for x. That means that we have to show +1x or just x on the left. Everything else supposed to be on the right. Step number 1, analysis. To solve a formula for a specific variable means to isolate that variable on one side of equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. I copy this equation again, or formula, and now x is in red. So now I know that x is supposed to be by itself. Now we are ready for step number 2, writing and solving an equation or formula. We are going to move -1y from the left to the right because we need x to be alone on the left. But don't forget that we have to change sign. It was -1y on the left, and it will be +1y on the right. Perfectly done. Now we are ready for step number 3, checking. It's not necessary to do this all the time, but I will show you just in case how to do that. We have to replace x in our original equation by expression +3 and +y, and check is left side equal to right side or not. As you see, +1y and -1y results in 0, so 3 equals 3. Yes, it works. So last step, we have to write the answer. +1x equal +1y and +3. Usually, constant term supposed to be the last one. And x is an expression. This is what we expect, because solving formula for variable, we expect x to be just an expression, not exact number as it was with regular equations, which we worked out before. Problem number 2. Positive 1y and negative 1x equals 3. And we have request solve for y. That means that we have to write our formula as positive 1y on the left, everything else on the right. Analysis. To solve a formula for specific variable means to isolate that variable on one side of equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. Okay? We can copy our equation or formula, and I color in red y because I want to see more clear which variable is supposed to stay alone on the left. Now step number 2, writing and solving an equation. So in order to get 1y on the left, we have to move negative 1x from the left to the right, but don't forget to change sign. So now we have y is 3 and positive x, and checking. Checking is not necessary, but let's do it. We have to replace in our original equation y by the expression positive 3 and positive 1x, and check, is left side equal to right or not? Yes, it is. And now we are ready to write the answer. Y is positive 1x and positive 3. Usually constant term is the last one, and y is an expression. This is what we expect because we have to solve formula for variable. Next example. X times y, or we can say positive 1x times positive 1y equals 3. And we have request solve for x. That means that we have to rewrite this equation as positive 1x equal or x equal. We are ready for analysis. To solve a formula for specified variable means to isolate that variable on one side of equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. Okay? Now step number 2, writing and solving an equation. What we have? X times y is 3, and we need to keep only positive 1x or x on the left. We have to divide it by positive 1y or just y both sides, and then simplify, because positive 1y divided by positive 1y or y divided by y is just 1. So result would be x equals 3 over y. And checking. Let's do it. Let's replace x by expression 3 over y and check, is left side equal to right or not? Y divided by y is 1, so 3 equals 3. Yes, that's correct. Now writing the answer. X is 3 over y, and x is an expression. This is what we expect because the request was solve for x, solve formula for variable. Next problem. The same equation or formula, x times y equals 3. But this time we have request solve for y. That means that we have to rewrite this as positive 1y or y on the left by itself. And now we are ready for analysis. Remember, to solve a formula for specific variable means to isolate that variable on the one side of equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. So we can copy our equation or formula, and I color in red to see more clear which variable is supposed to be on the left alone. So step number 2, writing and solving an equation. We need y by itself on the left. What can we do? We can divide it by x both sides, because x divided by x or positive 1x divided by positive 1x is just 1. As a result, what we will have, positive 1y or y is 3 over x. We're done. Checking. We can replace y by expression 3 over x and check, is left side equal to right? Yes, we can cancel. x over x is 1. So 3 equals 3. And now we are ready to write out the answer. Y is 3 over x. And we expect y to be an expression, and y is an expression. Next problem. Positive 1a equals 1 over 2 times b times h. And we have request solve for b. As you remember, solve for b means that we have to rewrite this formula as positive 1b on the left, everything else on the right. We are ready for analysis. As you remember, to solve a formula for a specified variable means to isolate that variable on one side of the equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. So I copy this formula and I color in red variable b to see more clear which variable is supposed to be by itself on the left. But let's move to step number 2, writing and solving an equation. First of all, we have fractions, so maybe we can clear fractions. Why not? So let's multiply by the least common denominator, which is just 2 both sides, and simplify, because 2 over 2 is just 1. As a result, we will have 2 times a, or 2a equals b times h. Now we are looking just for b. Okay, let's divide both sides by h. So now h over h is 1, and we can turn around and we can show b is 2a over h. Done practically. Now checking. It's not necessary step, but if you want, you can do it. So we have to replace in our original formula b by expression 2a over h and check. Is left side equal to right side or not? If you simplify by cancellation, 2 over 2 is 1, h over h is 1, and you will see a equals a. So our work was correct. And now we have to write the answer. b equals 2a over h. And b is an expression. This is what we expect because it was a request solve formula for variable b. Next problem. Positive 2x and negative 3y and positive 4 equals 0. And request is solve for y. That means that we have to show positive 1y on one side and everything else on the opposite side. You remember that to solve a formula for specified variables means to isolate that variable on one side of equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. And I copy this equation or formula one more time, and I use red color for y to see better what I supposed to isolate on one side of the equation. Now, step number 2, writing and solving. We can copy equation and let's isolate term with y. So we can move negative 3y from the left to the right because it's the easiest way to do that. Negative 3y on opposite side would be positive 3y. We have to divide it both sides by 3 because we are looking for 1y, positive 1y. We have to divide it both sides to keep balance, and we can simplify. 3 over 3 is 1, but we can go further because for the left side what we have positive 2x and positive 4 over 3. 3 is a common denominator for two terms, for 2x and for positive 4. So we can break this down into two fractions, 2x over 3 and positive 4 over 3 equals positive 1y. Or we can turn around and we can show y is 2x over 3 and positive 4 over 3. Checking is a good idea, but not always necessary. So I skip this time, and now we can write the answer. Y is 2x over 3 and positive 4 over 3. Y is an expression. This is what we expect. Next problem is more complicated, but now we're ready to solve a formula for a variable. Positive s equals 2 pi rh in the positive 2 pi radius square. And we have request solve for h. That means that we have to write this formula as positive 1h or just h equal. Let's analyze. As you remember, to solve a formula for a specific variable means to isolate that variable on one side of the equation with all other variables and constants on the opposite side. I use red color for h to see better where h is located. Now, step number 2, writing and solving equations. As you see, h is part of first term on the right. So let's isolate term with h. For that purpose, we have to move entire term, positive 2 pi radius square, from the right to the left. Don't forget to change sign. As a result, we will have positive s and negative 2 pi radius square equal 2 pi radius times h. We are looking for 1h, so we have to divide it both sides by 2 pi radius and simplify. So 2 pi radius divided by exactly the same product, 2 pi radius, will be just 1. As a result, now we have h by itself on the right and everything else on the left. We can turn around and we can show final answer. I skip step number 3, checking.
Problem. In one state, speeding fines are determined by the formula where F is the speeding fine in dollars if a person is caught driving X miles per hour. If the fine comes to $150, how fast was the person driving? If you have a formula, it's a good idea to mark what is what. F stands for fine, X stands for speed. Now, look into problem one more time and you will see that F, which stands for fine, is $150. So it's a good idea now to replace F by 150, and now we have an equation which we know how to solve.
Now we have to solve this equation for x. First of all, we have to remove parentheses using distributive property. So it will be 6 times positive x and 6 times negative 70. 6 times positive x would be positive 6x, 6 times negative 70, positive times negative is negative 420. Next, let's simplify if we have like terms. First, let's identify them, negative 420 and positive 55. Together it will be negative 365. Let's separate terms with x and constant terms. So let's move negative 365 from the right to the left. It looks like it's easy. Then we will have positive 365 and positive 150. They are like terms, so we can combine them. And we will have 515 equals 6 times x. But we are looking for 1x. We have to divide it by 6 both sides. 6 over 6 is 1. And then 515 divided by 6 would be 86. And our answer is that person who got a ticket was driving at speed which is 86 miles per hour. Very dangerous. Problem solving in geometry. We have to talk about perimeter, area, and volume. Let's talk about different shapes. The first one is square, then rectangle, then triangle, trapezoid, parallelogram, circle, and the next one would be combination of two trapezoids, blue and green, and the next figure is combination square and semicircle. Perimeter of the figure is the distance around it, total distance around it. So here is square, or rectangle, or triangle, or trapezoid, or parallelogram, or circle, or these two figures. It doesn't matter the shape of the figure. What is important, total distance around. Now, practical approach. We have to find the perimeter of a rectangle. And length is 6 centimeters, and width is 3 centimeters. And formula for perimeter of rectangle is perimeter equals 2 times length plus 2 times width. So we have to substitute in formula length for 6 and width for 3 and simplify. Only and only right side. 2 times 6, 12, and 2 times 3, 6, together 18 centimeters.
Solving word problems. Most word problems require equations. Let's talk about logical path for solving word problems. You have to read problem entirely. Get a feel for the whole problem. It's important to understand what the problem is asking, what exactly is the question you need to answer. After that, let's talk about first step analysis. You have to pick a variable to stand for unknowns, clearly labeling these variables with what they stand for. After that, read the problem again in order to recognize quantities and the relations between them, between numerical values and variables. Look for keywords. After that, you will be ready to translate the word problems into equation with variables. And then you have to solve this problem. It's important to check your work as you go, and after you finish, you make sure you are getting the result that makes sense. And finally, you are ready to write the answer. But please remember, to really learn how to do word problems, you have to practice more and more and more and more.
Problem number 8. Find the volume of a cylinder with a radius of 2 inches and a height of 4 inches. Round to the nearest tenth of a cubic inches. First step, analysis. From this problem, you can see that you have to find the formula for the volume of a cylinder. You can look into your textbook or use your computer and you can find the formula for the volume of a cylinder. V equals pi times radius squared times height. You have here 3 variables and we have to identify what is what. V stands for volume, R is a radius, and H is a height. In many cases you will see a simple drawing like this one, cylinder, and then you can see height and radius. And height is supposed to be perpendicular to the base. Now let's analyze this formula. Base is a circle and area of base is pi radius square. So now we can say the volume of a cylinder is area of base times height. What we did, we analyzed this formula, so we understand how this formula works. Now, in our problem we have height is 4 inches and radius is 2 inches. So we can use the first notation, V equals pi radius square times height, where we have to solve this equation for V. When radius is 2 and height is 4. So we have to substitute radius for 2, height for 4, and simplify. As a result, we will have V equals pi times 4, because 2 square is 4, times 4. Further simplification gives us V equals 16 times pi. Now, step number 3 would be checking. But when we have to use formula, our ability to check formula is very limited. So we can check only and only calculations. This is why you have to be over cautious when you are looking for formula, and you have to analyze the formula before you are going to use it. So now we have to skip step number 3, checking, and let's go to writing the answer. So the exact volume is 16 times pi cubic inches, or we can show V equals 16 times pi inches cubed. But if we use value for pi, we can use our calculator to approximate the volume, and we have to enter 16, then press times, press pi, equal, and you will see the value. And you have to round to the nearest tenth, so the volume is 50.3 inches cubed, or you can show V approximately equals 50.3 cubic inches.